Hey, everybody. Wake up, Patriots. Welcome. I'm Larry Swikart here, sitting in for Ed Henry. Although I guess is becoming my show. I'm not sure. But anyway, hey, how you doing? Good to have you with us. I'll be honest. I thought this was kind of a slow news week, except for the Elon Musk Trump thing. But I'll get into that. But as we go forward, I'm going to start sharing with you a lot of the resources that I use so that you can do your own investigation, reading, whatever. So let me give you today, just before we get started, a few of the Substacks that I use. Now, Substack is an online publishing forum, kind of an online newspaper. But the beauty of Substack is that you are your own editor and you get to write what you want. So far, I've never even remotely been censored on anything. They haven't even contacted me. So it's totally free form. You can say anything. You can charge. I have both a free Substack and a subscription Substack. And I try to balance them out with a couple a couple of free ones and a couple of for pay or subscription Substacks. But anyway, there are a wide number of authors on Substack that you need to be reading rather than just going to Breitbart. Breitbart is fine, or whatever sites you use. I used to like Free Republic, sites like that, Citizen Free Press, Pro-Trump News. These are all very good. But on Substack, here are a few people you should look for and get the free subscriptions to if you can. If you like them, subscribe to them. One is David Blackmon, Blackmon. He's a guy out of Texas, and he is an energy expert. Gas and oil, coal, you name it, he knows his energy stuff. So if you want to keep up with the energy elements of what's happening in the world, David Blackmon, and he does a couple of energy absurdities every week, which are just insane stuff happening with usually windmills or solar. Another really good one is Captain's Corner. Captain's Corner, and that's Seth, S-E-T-H, Keshel, K-E-S-H-E-L. And Seth will be joining me on our live election night coverage on November 5th, along with Ash Epp. And he is a real expert in analyzing voter trends, voter registrations in the states. He has gone through every single state in the union, looking at their population, their voter registrations, their history of how they vote. It's really detailed stuff. Seth Keshel, Captain's Corner. I also follow Naomi Wolf, whom you all, I think, know. And there's a couple of others I will bring to your attention from time to time. One is a liberal named Noah Smith, and I'd say he's right about 50% of the time. Strangely, for a liberal, he's in favor of tariffs. He's a little too pro-China for me, but a lot of his other points are good. He's a very good analyst of all things tech. So Noah Smith, and his column goes by the name of Noah Pinion. Get it? Noah Pinion. Let me see. Oh, and the last one, liberal patriot Rui Teixeira, T-E-I-X-E-I-R-A, Rui Teixeira, liberal patriot. And as you might imagine, according to the name, he is a liberal, but he's been screaming warnings for the past 3 years that the Democrats are not paying attention to the working class of any color, and that this is really going to hurt him. Now, he's being a liberal, excuse me, it's early for me. Being a liberal, he has, of course, kind of tried to fall in behind Kamala Harris, is having a hard time. But he's still a very, very good read and is regularly and routinely critical of liberals. and the Democrats. Okay, that's just some. Next time I'll give you some books. Maybe as we get going, I'll give you some of my favorite songs and tunes. All right. So as I said, actually a fairly slow week. Of course, the biggest story was Trump on X or Twitter with Elon Musk, easily two of the 10 most powerful, most influential people in the world, just sitting down and having a regular old conversation. It wasn't a hostile Q&A. I don't know if you saw the Dana Bash interview with J.D. Vance. That was ridiculous. And, you know, she kept asking about something he said 3 years ago about the crazy cat ladies, which is very true, but wouldn't get into any policies. And finally, he just called her out and said, listen, Dana, you've been talking about this now we got 15 minutes. So let's talk about some policies. And he really tore her a new one. What a horrible woman. So what's important here in this Trump-Musk interview is less the specifics of what they talked about. Trump, of course, promised to close the border. He said if he'd been in charge, the Ukraine war never would have happened, all that kind of stuff. But most people know Trump's policies. I can't believe that in 2024, there's 20% of the people who don't understand what President Trump is about policy-wise. All of the opposition to him, well, I won't say all. I'd say 50% of the opposition to President Trump is style. I don't like his mean tweets. I don't like the way he says these things. And you can't help that. Now, strangely, many of these people will still vote for Trump. But it just irks me to no end that they go off on style rather than looking at what he's actually doing and saying. So, Trump's return to X and Twitter. Now, I want to talk here irony. I'm a historian, as you see by Patriots History of the United States and my newest book, Patriots History of Globalism. I'm a historian, and I like to look at things in terms of their historical development, not just where they are now, but if you understand how we got here and what happened, you can sometimes, not all the time, I do not believe that history repeats itself. I believe it resembles itself a lot, but you'll never find two exact same things, obviously. So, Trump's return to X or Twitter is one of these cases where they thought they were going to do this, and it ended up causing that. Something totally unexpected and certainly not desired by them. So let's go back through time. In January 2021, Trump was banned from Twitter when he had talked about the stolen election and the fraud and all that sort of stuff. And remember, at the time, Elon Musk did not own Twitter, and Jack Dorsey was controlling it, and they were cracking down on everybody. I think that's when I got banned, right about the same time Trump got banned. And I was kicked out with 135,000 followers. He was kicked out with almost 90 million followers. I mean, can you imagine that? So, in order to have a platform that would replace Twitter, Trump started Truth Social 1 year later. Again, the major initial purpose of Truth Social was for President Trump to get out of his stream of consciousness, his constant flow of policies, ideas, and of criticisms of the Biden administration. All right, so jump forward now to 2023, and the Democrats in 2023 had an opportunity. I'm not saying they could do it, but I'm saying they had an opportunity to try to steal the election, number one. If they started prepping right then, they would have had a chance. Number two, they had a chance in 2023 to remove Biden and really set up Harris for a campaign. I'm certainly no Harris fan, or Cackles, as I call her. But you have to admit that it's hard jumping into a campaign in August, when most people start in July of the previous year and start setting up everything. Now, she, of course, inherited all the money from the Biden campaign, and she's going to get almost all the campaign staff and headquarters throughout all the states. But still, even then, it's not easy. I'll give her some credit for having to do that. Nevertheless, they had a chance a year ago to do that, to get rid of Biden then as the candidate and to put Harris in, and they didn't do it. Why? Why did they do this? Because they put it all on lawfare. They really believed that they were going to get Trump with all of these cases. They didn't think they were going to fail in a single one. And just to remind you, they had the boot Trump off the ballot cases that ended up with the Colorado case going to the U.S. Supreme Court, where the Supreme Court ruled against Colorado. They had the E. Jean Carroll defamation case. They had the Stormy Daniels business fraud case, because supposedly he was funneling money from the campaign to pay off Stormy Daniels. They had the New York civil asset case, where they said supposedly he had overvalued his assets. Now, I'm not going to go into any of these in detail. That's not my point. My point is just to remind you what all was going on, why they were so confident. They had the DC insurrection case that was eventually headed by Jack Smith. They had the Mar-a-Lago classified documents case that eventually was headed by Jack Smith. And by the way, the New York insurrection case was Judge Chutkan. And then finally, they had the Atlanta RICO case that involved Fat Fannie Willis. So with all of these cases, the Democrats thought they had it in the bag. Surely, and they had the New York case with Stormy Daniels was under Alvin Bragg and this Judge Juan Merchan. So with all of these, they thought they would accomplish two things. One, they thought they would put Trump in jail. Yes, put him in jail. And we'll get to the sentencing that's coming up fairly soon. Number two, they wanted to bankrupt him. So here's where the irony comes in. Forget the criminal cases and the criminal side. They want to bankrupt him using the E. Jean Carroll case and the defamation verdict, and then the civil asset fraud case handled by Boaston Bragg. No, I'm sorry. So it was handled by Engeron. The total of the Stormy Daniels case, the E. Jean Carroll case, and the civil asset fraud case, the judgments that came down totaled over $485 million. So again, the goal was to bankrupt Trump, right? But Trump had laid plans already to take Truth Social public. And in March of 24, he merged it with Digital World Acquisition Company, DWAC as it's called. And in the course of that merger, Trump made $4 billion personally. $4 billion. So think about this. By banning him from Twitter, the leftists gave him 10 times the amount of money they would steal from him in all of these cases. How's that for historical irony? It was their actions in banning him from Twitter that gave him the $4 billion. He never would have started Truth if they hadn't kicked him off Twitter. So fast forward to last Tuesday when Trump and Elon sat down in this conversation, they had 74 million live viewers, listeners, whatever you want to call it, on the podcast. 74 million original listeners. They had over 1 billion with a B retweets of the podcast and re-listens. Here's the worst part for the Democrats. 70% of those who tuned into this were ages 25 to 35. This is why Trump is winning the Utes, as they said in My Cousin Vinny. Now, understand that if you're under 25, you're of the TikTokers. Okay, you're 25 to 35, you're in the Twitter zone. You're above 35, you're using Instagram, Snapchat, and if you're above 50, you're probably using Facebook. Okay, that's kind of the age breakdown of these different platforms. So Trump hit one of the most popular of the platforms, reaching one of the key demographics out there. And of course, the Europeans, they want to punish Musk. They want to ban him or do something like that because he had the temerity to actually have free speech on a free speech platform. It's an interesting development what's going on in England and Europe right now. The murder of a Southport, England trio of girls, ages 6 through 9, by a knife-wielding, probably, they won't say it, but it's probably a Muslim. His name is Arabic. And they say, oh, his parents were citizens of Wales. So that doesn't mean anything. They could be first-generation immigrants. Who knows? But clearly the people of Southport knew who he was. And there were big riots and big pushbacks. Well, the British government's not going to tolerate that. They're going to have an open society whether you want it or not. They're going to give you democracy, good and hard. So these riots and protests have spread. And then first, England began arresting anyone in the United Kingdom who was protesting online, say Twitter or any place else, these actions by illegal immigrants. Well, they're not all illegal. They're legal immigrants, but they've taken over the country. And finally, a lot of Brits are finally just waking up and they're saying, you know what, this is not good for the country. We aren't England anymore. We're a third world country. Well, you can't say that. The British government, especially under this new Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, I call him the Obenführer, Keir Starmer, he's not having it. So not only did they start arresting people for tweeting and for posting on social media opposition to immigration, but they threatened to extradite people abroad for posting against immigration in England. Now, again, I'm a historian, and I got to kind of think back. This kind of led to some problems in 1812 because the British were arresting Americans at sea and saying they were runaway British sailors who had, defected, who had deserted, and they were just bringing them back. And of course, they weren't. They were Americans. But this caused the War of 1812. This is the main cause of the War of 1812, exactly what Britain is trying or threatening to do right now over immigration. So all of this comes back to Musk and Trump and X and Twitter. And here's the real significance, I think, of this interview this week, besides reaching this incredible number of younger people. And it is, we have gone through probably the 2 worst weeks of Trump's campaign. Not in terms of what he's done. And certainly I'm not discounting the assassination attempt. I mean, that's illegal by itself. But what I'm talking about is that his polls or the hoax polls. I'm going to get to those later, but the hoax polls have had him down or tied or falling off from where he was. You remember they were having him up by 6 points over Biden before Biden stepped down. And now all of a sudden we've got polls that are tied and polls that are showing Harris up. And Richard Barris, America's best pollster, he warned last week, he said, prepare for a Harris plus 10 poll. And sure enough, our good old pals at Quinnipiac, one of the worst polling outfits in existence. These guys have the worst track record you can imagine. Sure enough, they came out with Harris plus 10 in Pennsylvania, which is utterly absurd. Barris thinks it is tied, a toss-up. I think it's a little better than that for Trump based on what Seth Keshel has been doing and on voter registrations, which we will talk about in a minute. So anyway, to wrap up all of this, the Musk-Trump sit-down was an end run around Harris's strategy of never talking to the media, never having to answer an unscripted question, never having any hostile questions at all, and kind of dominating the news cycle by just saying what she wants to say and getting off the stage. So the same way that Biden, Rutabaga, same way he did. Trump and Musk broke that mold. My guess is they will do another one or two of these during the campaign. Now, Harris's team is squawking like a bunch of cackling birds, but they've got a problem because Musk has invited her on as well, but she couldn't hold up for 15 minutes under that kind of, even just general discussion. I'm not talking about hostile questions. I mean, just a friendly discussion. Well, what are your views on this? Do you really want to close the border? If so, why haven't you done anything as vice president for 3 years? So think of the Musk and Trump sit down as the first of perhaps several of these strategic fire breaks to the Harris campaign. All right, when we come back, we're going to take a look at some polling and kind of the hoax strategy that Harris is using. But they said inflation has stopped. It's turned down. Inflation has turned down this week, right? First of all, core inflation still rose. Second of all, nothing has happened with inflation because you actually buy stuff at the grocery store. Well, with this eroding your dollars, you might want to consider our friends at Colonial Metals Group. You might want to consider a hedge, as the economists call it, a hedge against inflation, which is gold and silver. And Colonial Metals can help you out. They've got a special program for Wake Up Patriots with a self-directed IRA. This is important because you can pull your money out, your gold and silver out anytime you want to. There's various metals programs out there that once you buy, it's stuck in somebody else's safe and you don't have access to it. No, not with Colonial Metals. So consider getting some gold and silver from Colonial Metals and protect your family's future. If they have one special offer at 800-805-4034, where you can get a free safe and $10,000 in free silver if you open up one of their accounts. So check them out, Colonial Metals, 1-800-805-4034. Well, let's take a look at some of this polling. Rich Barris gets really agitated if you use the term oversample. I understand what he's saying. I do get it. But I think it's extremely technical. And what he means to say is that you will get a larger group than you may need because they're hard to reach, and then you winnow them down to the proper weighting. But You and I aren't pollsters. We'll probably use the term oversample here. So we have these hoax polls. And as predicted a week ago, most of them, there's 3 that came out. Rasmussen had President Trump up 4 nationally. There's another one, I think Harris X had him up 2. Then there was another one that came out from Daily Mail in England yesterday, had President Trump up 2. But a lot of these have Harris up. And part of what they're doing is, again, to use perhaps an incorrect term, but one that I think you know what it means. They are oversampling Democrats. They are waiting for far more Democrats than there are in the voting world. Okay. And I'll tell you why we know that in just a minute. Many of these are Democrat plus 6, Democrat plus 7. One of my analysts even found a Democrat poll that when you really work through it, it was Democrat plus 19. So they are really, really, really overweighting these, let me use that term, in order to get Harris up by 2. Anything that has Harris up by 10 is just something you can blow your nose on. It's terrible. So why did they do this? They were in such doldrums, they were so depressed, so demoralized by Biden and where things were heading, that they needed something that would juice up and jazz up the Democrat base. And so they've arranged all these kind of hoax rallies. Yeah, there's people at these rallies. There's some people there. The one in Phoenix was by invitation only. So they invited every single Democrat they could think of. But they also ran an ad in Phoenix papers asking for 500 actors to come out and hold up signs. Also, they blocked off the top levels of the gym she was in, at least 2 of the top levels. Now, one of the pictures I saw, and I don't know where it was, but it showed a auditorium just packed, just huge crowd. And it looked to me, I counted, they had 6 levels. I don't know of any auditorium that has 6 levels. Usually at most they have 4, more than likely 3, kind of a floor level, kind of mezzanine, then an upper level, right? But this one had 6. They've also done research on the crowds. And lo and behold, the same guy appears 4 and 5 times in all of these pictures. Some people have like 3 sets of hands. Some of the people's faces are grossly distorted, like something you'd find in the movie Mask. So what's going on? They have some real people, no doubt about it. They're invited, and some are actors. Not a lot, but some. But the rest of the crowd is AI generated. And this is going to be a problem for us because we're going to have to start dealing now with fakes by AI. AI, I don't know how to say that. Hoax photos, right? We've already had hoax polling. We have hoax news. Now we're going to have hoax photos. So kind of keep that in mind. But they had to juice up the base, and the polling was part of this. But in addition, Barris warns that what they are doing is they have what's called a response bias. A response bias in the polls. The pollsters know about this. They are not adjusting for it because they want it in there. What's a response bias? Most Trump voters know who they're voting for and are unpersuadable. A lot are pretty sure who they're voting for and don't want to get phone calls or texts. But this big body of demoralized, disillusioned Democrats needed something to cheer about. All right, so your team's down 40-0. You cheer that field goal, right? And this is their field goal. So the response bias is that Democrats are more likely to answer a phone or an online poll than are Trump supporters. And the pollsters just go ahead and go with that. They don't try to adjust that out and say, no, we need to go back and sample more Republicans, more people of rural areas, and so on. So they don't do that at all. They're very happy with big urban samples. The samples are always heavily weighted to women. And they're just flat lying. I mean, one of these had Harris and Trump tied with white voters. In what universe? Trump is up 20 points with white voters. He's up about 20 points with working class of all colors. So when you get into, and this is really in the weeds, but when you get into what's called the top line, the basics of the poll, the cross tabs, you start to find out that they're simply lying and cheating. And this is just something we're going to have to go with and understand they're going to do for a while. But the fundamentals haven't changed. And the fundamentals are the economy, immigration, the Ukraine war, inflation, crime. Those are the top 5 in any poll you look at. Abortion is way down there. Now, for those whom abortion is the number one voting issue, they're always going to vote on that. So you can just kind of almost toss that out. They're going to come out if Howdy Doody is the candidate, so long as Howdy Doody has a D after his name, as in favor of abortion. But the fundamentals haven't changed. And this is what Tony Fabrizio, Trump's pollster, said 2 weeks ago. He said, be ready for a bad few weeks because they're going to lie in the polls, but the fundamentals haven't changed. And this is what Barris keeps saying. They're going to lie for a while, but the fundamentals haven't changed. And the way you can really see this is look at all these polls and look at the question, who do you think is better in dealing with the economy, foreign relations, whatever it is? And Trump is leading Harris by big margins, sometimes by 20 points. Only one line, somebody a better leader or something. I think she came out ahead in one poll. But in almost all these polls, Trump is way ahead in what we call the fundamentals. And those are not going to change. So here's my message to all of you. Buckle up. You're going to be in for at least 2, maybe 3 more weeks of this garbage. They're going to have the DNC convention coming up, next week? And unless the riots totally overshadow the convention, and again, that's kind of up to the hoax news media and whatever they cover, you're going to get fawning, slavishly loyal Harris stories that make Harris and Tampon Timmy Waltz look like Batman and Robin. I mean, they're just, get ready for it. And you can't let it bother you, folks. You just, let me give you a drag race analysis kind of metaphor. Back in my ute, I was drag racing cars. I had a 350 Camaro, really souped up. I mean, it had the whole engine had been redone with, anyway, a lot of details you don't need to know, but the engine was super hot. The car was super hot. And we would go race. And at the end of the race, if you won your class versus, say, all other Camaro type cars, whatever those were, Ford Mustangs or whatnot, you would race for something called the Eliminator. And in the Eliminator, you had to race your car that won your class against every other class winner. In other words, you'd be racing against cars that had half your horsepower and cars that had twice your horsepower. So how did they make it fair? Well, if you've ever seen a drag race, they have these lights like street lights, stoplights, but they have, I think, 3 or 4 that are, they have one at the top that is red, and then as I recall, they had like 3 that were orange, and they go boop, 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 green, and you couldn't take off before green. The camera would catch you and disqualify you. The other guy, if he wasn't as muscular, didn't have as big a car as you did, didn't have as much horsepower, he would get what is called a spot, and he would get to take off before you did. And likewise, if you were racing somebody that was far more powerful than you, you would get the spot. Well, I'll never forget, I was in an eliminator race with a Ford Falcon 2-cylinder carburetor, and Ford Falcon got the green light and it goes, and it's so far down the drag strip, I could barely see his lights, and I'm still stuck waiting for my green light. And finally, my green light came on and go, and I passed him like that. I was surprised at how fast I passed him. Well, this is where we are now, folks. You're at the starting light, and you've got to wait for the Falcon of the Harris, the Cackles campaign, to get her little spot and get her little lead, because it's all manufactured to make it fair in their minds, to try to offset Trump's lead, right? So just be patient. Don't jump the gun. You're going to get a shot, and when you get a shot, you're going to go blow her away. And by the way, I think not only are the Democrats stuck with her, but they're also stuck with Tampon Timmy. I don't think they can get rid of either of these people at the convention. Well, folks, remember our sponsor is Colonial Metals here. And remember, a good hedge against inflation is gold or silver. Always has been, always will be. And when you get Weimar Republic type money that nobody wants, remember the pictures of people going around with wheelbarrows full of money. We don't ever want to see that in America. But just as a hedge to protect yourself, consider Colonial Metals and their special offer to Wake Up Patriots, where they have a self-directed IRA that allows you to pull out your gold or silver if you need to use it for some reason. You think, man, things are getting tight, I better get some silver out. You know, it's fairly easy to spend silver. Believe me, if we get in truly inflationary times, stores will take gold and silver. So let the team of experts at Colonial Metals help you out. Call them at 800-805-4034 and help them set you up with one of their special accounts. They have one offer where you can get a free safe, and you can get $10,000 of free silver to start you off. So call Colonial Metals Group, 800-805-4034. All right. So the clock is now ticking. I've been going on about the clock for some time, and it really is, it has set in now. I think North Carolina begins voting in about 30 days. So they're not going to be able to switch out anybody else. They're stuck with Harris and Waltz, Tampon Timmy. And we call him that because he wanted to put, as governor, he wanted to put tampon machines, dispensers in boys' bathrooms. This is how insane, what lunatic views these people have. So let's talk a few voter registration numbers. So when I say fundamentals, I'm not just talking about the economy. I'm not just talking about the Ukraine war. I'm not just talking about inflation. I'm not just talking about immigration. I am talking about trends that are undeniable. Now, Rich Barris and I disagree on this a little, but I think that voter registration remains the number one means of predicting how a person will vote. Okay. When you go to register to vote, they will say, do you want to be a Democrat, a Republican, or an independent? And you have to mark one of those boxes. You're not going to mark Republican if you don't intend to vote Republican. Now, yes, things can change. Candidates can change. Well, I don't like that candidate. Okay. But by and large, history hath shown that voter registration is a key predictor in how people will vote. Now, let me mention this because some of you are going to be a little confused. Not all states register by party. Not all states have that party identification box. Georgia doesn't. Texas doesn't. Michigan doesn't. Wisconsin doesn't. Virginia doesn't. Those are 5 really important ones, okay? But a lot do. Arizona and Nevada, California, Ohio, Florida, Pennsylvania, Iowa, Maine. These all have the voter identifiers. So even in California, I'm sorry, we need to pay homage to Arnold here. California. Even in California, the voter registration has shifted in favor of Republicans. Now, there was a while there where Republicans were getting crushed in California, partly because so many of them were leaving. And the state went from about 7.5 million Democrats to 5 million Republicans. Can you believe there are 5 million Republicans in California? But now, but more recently, it's been about 8.5 million to 5. So there's a huge, huge Democrat lead in California, which is why I say don't get all worked up about Steve Garvey polls. I like Steve. He's a great guy. I hope he wins. But you're looking at overcoming a Democrat voter registration advantage of 3 million. So that's a lot. However, that said, even in California now, the voter registrations have shifted in favor of Republicans. By about 3 to 1. Now, obviously, it's not going to catch up by the election. I'm just saying this is an indicator, right? These are signs. In Arizona, which I've been following very closely, Maricopa County alone is now at a plus 160,000 Republicans over Democrats. How big is that? That's 30,000 more than statewide the Republicans had an advantage of in 2020. So Maricopa County alone, if the election were today and everybody voted as, Indy's split 50-50 and R's voted for Trump and D's voted for Harris, Trump would win Maricopa County and Arizona easily. Okay? The rest of the state is turning red even faster. 2 of the blue counties, the only blue counties, except for Pima, both flipped in the last month. Florida. We don't even track Florida anymore because Republicans are over 800,000 advantage now in Florida. Not too long ago, they were 600,000 disadvantage. So the shift in Florida has been mind-boggling, so much so that anybody who considers Florida a swing state is just insane. Iowa, which nobody talks about, but it's important because Iowa borders Wisconsin, and those voters tend to vote the same way. Iowa's seen a very big Republican shift. Nebraska 2nd District, which went for Biden by 22,000 votes. Republicans have out-registered Democrats in that district now by 13,000. That means the difference in the district now is just about 9,000 Democrat votes. You just have to flip half those people, 4,500 people, and you win that district, which is 1 electoral vote. I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but in the grand scheme of things, every electoral vote counts. The big one, Pennsylvania. Folks, before Trump ran the first time in 2016, Pennsylvania was close to a 600,000 Democrat lead, 600,000. Today, it is under 150. That means Republicans have shaved 3/4 of the lead off. And remember, Trump won this in 16 with that 600,000 Democrat lead. And in all likelihood, he won it in 2020 with a 300,000 Democrat lead. So the fact that they are shifting, and they're shifting fast, in 1 month alone, Republicans out-registered Democrats 3 to 1. Much of this is due to Scott Pressler, who is a registration getting machine. That guy is out there registering people like crazy. And the RNC finally brought him in. I was glad to see that. They need to really fund him and get him fully involved. The point is, This is a fundamental that none of these pollsters are looking at, that all, and I mean all of these states are trending red quick, fast, and in a hurry. They are all moving toward more Republican registrations than Democrat registrations by several orders of magnitude in some cases. And so if you're a pollster in Arizona and you are weighting it for Democrat +1, A, you're stupid, and B, you're wrong. You should start by weighting it at least Arizona Republican +3, at least. More than likely, it's already +6 right now, and going into the election, Arizona is going to have a 7-point Republican lead, meaning that for the Democrats to win the state, they'd have to overcome 7 points that Trump's going to have. So this is all very critical stuff when it comes to fundamentals. Now, the last big topic I want to get to here is jail for Trump. There's been a lot of talk about this trial with Boast and Bragg up there in New York in front of Judge Merchan, who is an utterly total partisan. This guy's family's involved in getting Democrat money, and I mean they're as corrupt as can be. And he has refused to recuse himself multiple times, despite the fact his family's getting money from the Democrats. And so Trump's been found guilty of 34 counts of bogus stuff. These were at best misdemeanors and have never, ever been punished by a felony charge in the past. Remember, Barack Obama did exactly the same thing with campaign finance money. So did Hillary Clinton. So anyway, Trump has been found guilty. Now, technically, he's not guilty till the sentence is pronounced and a sentence is actually levied against him. So Merchan has set up September 18th, I believe it is, for a sentencing date. And there's various options. And I will be quite honest with you, nobody, not Andy McCarthy, not any of the leftists, nobody knows what's going to happen for sure. This Merchan guy is a total loose cannon. He's absolutely crazy. But he could sentence President Trump to jail pending appeal. That would allow President Trump to stay out while he's appealing the decision, or the sentence, I'm sorry, not the decision. Well, both, the sentence and the decision. And he would remain free. Merchan could impose a jail sentence that has to start right away. Now, Andy McCarthy of National Review, who is no Trump lover, this guy is, he pretends to be a real conservative, but he's very much in the federal government bag. He likes the federal government. He likes the government's power. So very seldom will you see him write against anything to do with the federal government. At any rate, McCarthy says Trump will get a jail sentence. Robert Barnes, whom I follow a lot on Twitter at Barnes_law, and on locals at Viva Barnes, he's a gambler, and he routinely puts things in terms of what are the odds. And he says the odds of Trump going to jail are only 10%. Now, my trusted source on all things courts is Zen Master. Zen Master has not weighed in on whether or not Merchan will actually render a jail sentence. But what he has said is that if he does, either the New York Appeals Court or the U.S. Supreme Court will step in. And he's been fairly adamant that Trump will never spend a day in jail. Now, why would the Supreme Court get involved? This conceivably is election interference at the highest level. And yes, we have had a candidate for the U.S. presidency run from jail, and that would be Eugene V. Debs in 1920. And Debs actually got 1 million votes back then from jail. So conceivably, it's possible. The real sentence will be the election. Whatever the voters say is really what the real sentence is. And if they elect Trump president, no matter what this sentence or pending sentence is, you have a big, big national security problem because the president-elect would be in jail and would have to be setting up a staff for the United States government in jail, would have to be meeting foreign leaders in jail, would have Secret Service agents around him in jail. You see all the problems. You see why Zen Master says that it's just going to be extremely unlikely that Mershon actually tries to send him to jail. If I had to guess, I would say Mershon is going to give Trump a jail sentence, but he is free on his own recognizance until the appeals process is done. In other words, he will actually be sentenced, but that sentence won't take effect until they run through all the appeals project. Well, let me mention one last time our friends at Colonial Metals and how it would benefit you to have some hard currency if we get in further inflationary situations. I mean, right now it's bad enough, but it would be good to have some gold and silver where you can get it. And Colonial Metals Group provides that with a self-directed IRA. So you don't have to call a broker and say, hey, when can I come down and get my silver out of my safe? Nothing like that. Okay. You can have immediate access to your money, to your silver, to your gold. And remember, they also have a special offer for Wake Up Patriots, where you can get a free safe and get $10,000 of silver to start your account off with free. So check it out at Colonial Metals, and that's 800-805-4034. That's 800-805-4034. Well, I want to remind you guys also that I have a full curriculum in U.S. and world history, and that my U.S. curriculum goes right to the present. In fact, if you want to email me at Larry@wildworldofhistory.com, Larry@wildworldofhistory.com, I will send you what I call the 20th anniversary edition update. Now, it's not a full book. Don't expect to get a full book in the mail. What I'll do is I'll send you a new chapter that I've written from 2018 to 2023, all the good stuff, right, in a PDF form. But also the document includes insertions, new research that I found that go all the way back through the book. And I'll say on page 142, after the second paragraph, insert this new material. Now, this is new research I've done. I'm constantly looking at sources and new research and keep the book. Mike and I keep it up to date. You'd be surprised how you can still find little typo errors, 15, 16, 20 years after a book is published. It's really quite amazing after hundreds and hundreds of editorial eyes have been over it. Anyway, I'll send you that free. Larry@wildworldofhistory.com. I would like you to sign up for the newsletter. If you just scroll down on the Wild World of History website where it says newsletter and sign up. But anyway, back to the curriculum. You can get a full curriculum in U.S. history that tracks perfectly with Patriots history of the United States, and includes me teaching every chapter, every unit in high production video. You get all my maps, all my charts, all my graphs downloaded. There's no license to expire. It's a year-long course. It's yours as long as you want it. If you need more than a year to do the course, no big deal. Use it with as many kids as you want. So check it out at the wildworldhistory.com. There's the video samples and other samples up on the website. I also have a full course in world history from 1775 to the present And I recommend this usually after the U.S. course because there's more reading, believe it or not, in the world history course, especially second semester, than in the U.S. course. So you kind of get your students warmed up with the U.S. history course. Another freebie, by the way, is I am reading through the entire book, Patriots History of the United States, at the Wild World of History channel on YouTube. That is the Wild World of History channel on YouTube. So keep those things in mind. Remember, my newest book, A Patriot's History of Globalism, is out there. You can get that and Patriot's History available in a package offer at the Wild World of History. Well, I thought you would enjoy, as we go out here, a little story from my band days and kind of life on the road. You know, people have this view of rock and roll bands as being glamorous, and it's just all, and it can be if you're in the group that has the jets, that has the roadies who set everything up for you. But we hadn't made it that far yet. We were in the next tier down, and we had to drive to all of our events, our usually clubs, but sometimes concerts. We had 2 roadies, but for the most part, we had to set everything up ourselves before the show. I'll never forget, we were opening for Steppenwolf in West Palm Beach, and they had union rules down there. I was not allowed to unload my own drums. They had to take the drums from the truck to the stage. Only once it got to the stage was I allowed to go in and actually set anything up. But here's my story. So we arrived at a club in Florida. It has since burned down. It was one of the most amazing clubs I ever saw. Every room was hand painted psychedelically different. It was a phenomenally beautiful club. So we arrived on a Sunday. We were to start on a Monday. And one of our favorite bands who would play the same circuit as we did was called Mother's Finest, a funk rock group out of Atlanta, Georgia. They're still around, folks. Can you believe it? They are still rocking. And we put them in our 2010 movie, Rockin' the Wall. At any rate, Mother's Finest was playing there. And so we went in to say hi to the club owner. And hi, we're going to set up. Tomorrow we'll be in, blah, blah, blah. And we stayed to listen to Mother's Finest. We were only in the club for an hour. And we had my Dodge Maxi van. Now, we would put all of our instruments, the keyboards, Hammond organ, the dozens and dozens of amplifiers, all of that, even the guitars, were in a big truck with a Fruhoff box on it that was driven by one of our roadies. But we put all of our personal belongings, our suitcases and so on, in my Dodge Maxi van. And so we're inside the club talking to the club owner, not more than an hour. We come back out and somebody had smashed my window and broken into my van and stole all of our stuff. I mean, every last suitcase, every last handbag, shoulder bag, whatever it was. And I had in that some really remarkable things. I'm not kidding, I had some blue suede shoes. I had platform shoes that were blue suede, and they had a rattlesnake skin Thunderbird across the top of the shoe. Really incredible shoes. I also had this jacket that was a psychedelic jacket. It was like a canvas jacket, but this woman I knew had painted psychedelic stuff, and it was gorgeous. Oh, it was the most beautiful jacket. They stole that. But the most important thing they stole was my address book. They stole all our underwear and everything. So we had to go shopping the next day before we go to the club. We had to go shopping for underwear because none of us had any clothes to wear, right? So the police came, they took a report. I was really disconsolate because back then we didn't have these. We didn't have cell phones that contained all of our addresses. It was in my address book. Well, sure enough, before too long, the police called me. And they said, Mr. Swikart, we didn't find any of your clothes. We found your address book. It's a miracle. I'll see you guys back here next Thursday.